Hello, it's Susan, and this is just a quick video to help you understand how to make an IEP for a student who had an IEP last year. So we call new IEPs for this school year a review. It represents that the student had an IEP in IEP Online last year. So they were a Simcoe County student with an IEP, and we're going to pull some of the information from last year's IEP to help us make this year's IEP. So each year a student gets a new IEP for the school year, but we can use some of the information that's helpful from last year's IEP to guide this year's IEP. And so we call that a review IEP. So what I'm going to go do here, I've logged into IEP Online. I'm looking at my student list. I'm going to determine who needs an IEP from this list, and I'm going to select that student's name. So I know that Poppy needs an IEP this year. So I go to Poppy's IEP information, and I can see that her last IEP is locked, and I'm going to press the Create button. And the type I'm making is a review. And the program defaults to copy over last year's information that would be valuable for this year's IEP. Press Create, and the program's going to create a draft IEP for you. So here on the left-hand side, we have the different sections of the IEP that need to be filled out. Because this is a review IEP and some of that information came over, we're actually already at 68% completed. And what we just need to do is include some information about this year's IEP in order to finish it up. So the first thing we're going to do is add in some information on our contact with parents or guardian regarding this year's IEP. So that could have been done through a consultation log of a form that was sent home. Perhaps there was a phone call, an email, a conversation, a team meeting, an S&C meeting, a chat with parents. Somehow there was evidence that parents were involved in the development of this year's IEP or had that opportunity to be involved. We would track that there in the consultation log. Just as a note, so we tap into consultation log, add log. The yellow boxes are required, so an outcome is required for now. And if we're waiting on an outcome, please update the information once you have the correct information. Yellow boxes are required. I'm going to save that information. I'm finishing my consultation section, and now I go to planning. I'm going to make sure that the information now in the IEP is correct for this school year. So I've got a IEP date within the first year, within this school year. So I can go back and make that the first day of school if this IEP started on that first day of school and teachers were using the accommodations from day one. So I might go back and change that to the first day of school. The reporting format for this student, for this sample, we'll just select one. The student only has a provincial report card. We're going to select that. We're going to scroll down here to make sure that the information is correct for the student in their class placement and the type of special education support that they're going to receive this year. Save our changes, and then continue to work through the left-hand side, working through to get green dots all the way down the side. We need to add to the team, so the teachers. So I'm going to add in some users here. I'm going to add in my teacher here at my training school. So I'm going to add that teacher name. If you don't see a teacher in the list, you want to make sure that that teacher is assigned to the student in PowerSchool. So make sure that that student is in that teacher's class in PowerSchool. IEP Online reads from PowerSchool, and that's how it gets that information. And then we would identify the sources consulted for this year's IEP. Again, I'm just going to click some for this. Save that, and then move down to the courses. And again, you could do add many to add many courses at once, or you can add individually. So I'll just click on add. And again, I'm going to select my teacher, and I'm going to identify so that the student has accommodations and add a course to the student's schedule. And I can still see that that's a yellow. So there is still information that's needed here. So I want to make sure that I'm clear on the program information that's needed. So let's just see what we need here. If I'm not sure, what I can do is I can go up to the top and click on the 90%, and it's going to tell me what's remaining. So I still need a human resource person. I still need details placement. I need a placement. So I need to go into the planning tab and find the placement. If I go back to details and placement, here we go. So I need to select one of these. So this was the first day of a new school year or semester in which the student is continuing in a placement. And so I select on that. I'm going to make that the first day of school as well, just to keep things consistent. The student is not IPRC'd, so I can change that information to reflect when her IEP or his IEP or their IEP started. So I'm going to save that information. And again, I can see them turning to the green dot. So I want to go to the assessment information and add any current assessment information in there. So if there's any new psychological assessments or assessments that have been completed over the spring or summer and not yet been added to IEP Online, those would need to be added. Teacher assessments, maybe the report card has some information, or another teacher assessment was completed and that information is going to go in here. Perhaps a prime assessment was completed. Make sure that the areas of student strength and needs are still reflective of those assessments. We want our strengths and needs to be based on current data. So if we know that we have information on that psychological assessment came and gave us new information, we would make those changes to reflect the new information that we have. We want to check that the accommodations are still appropriate given the placement and the support that that student requires, and again, based on any new assessment information we have. And then we want to go through and identify programs. So this would be if a student had a modified or alternative page. This is where you would go to add the modified goals. If the course isn't here, so if I'm expecting this student to have a math page, then I need to add the math page back in that planning section where the courses were laid out. So if you're wondering where they are, go back to the planning section. So human resources is required here. I'm going to go to human resources. And we know that all students that have an IEP have some sort of special education support. So we want to identify that on the IEP. So this student gets shared, actually it's indirect support from the CERT. And I would identify that. Please don't identify the individual by name in case they're not available. Just the agency or the school board is fine. And again, the frequency, so this student is just a little bit, we'll just say that this CERT is consulting that time and it started at the beginning of the year and that was happening here. And then we save our information. And so what I can see is that over on the left-hand side, I'm now at a 100%. So from a technical perspective, all the boxes that were required have been filled out, but you may find that there's information about your student that still needs to be added. Maybe a new transition goal, maybe there's additional human resources or additional programs or additional accommodations. So don't just assume that 100% means the IEP is done. It means those technical boxes are filled out, but we do encourage you to reflect on all sections of the IEP to see if it is up to date for this school year based on the information that you have. I hope that was helpful. That's our session for today. Thanks.